Okay, so can self-love really be the key to your fulfillment? Well, this is what we're going to find out today. My name is Gwen from My Spiritual Butterfly. I'm a Reiki Master Teacher and a transformational life coach, and I'm joined today by the lovely Jae Gibbs from Our Living Tree. Welcome, Jae. Do you want to share what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, and yeah, thanks Gwen for having me on again. Loving our chats,
Yeah.
and yeah, I am a space holder and a somatic coach. I teach things like yoga and general well-being, and yeah, I'm here to share all the experiences that I've
Yeah.
had over the last 20 years. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining me as usual. It's lovely catching up every month. We have such good conversations. But yeah, this is an interesting one. And it's funny that I think we've done like 10 of these conversations now. This might be number 11. And we've
Crazy.
never really, yeah, we've never really gone deep into self-love. And it's like, yay, why?
Mm,
But it is nice to kind of maybe have some space to look at self-love and have a bit of a controversial look at it as well in terms of that question, can it really be the key to fulfillment? Um,
mm,
and I think we wanted to start by maybe sharing our journey to what we feel is self-love, but we will also have a couple of challenging questions around it too. So if you're watching, join in the conversation, ask your questions, maybe
mm,
put in the chat your kind of reflections on self-love and how it's helped you. But that's kind of where we're going to start today. We're going to look at our personal journeys to
mm,
self-love so far, because we're acknowledging that it isn't always, it's not necessarily a complete thing. It's
mm,
continual. And as we grow, that things come up. But Jay, I don't know if you want to start with your journey to self-love.
mm. Yeah, it was interesting when this kind of question came up earlier, and I was thinking about it.
Mm,
And I think initially, like early on, growing up, there was no one talked about self love. It just wasn't a thing. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, let's say, and this just wasn't discussed. And so I think it just wasn't in my general awareness anyway. And then I think the first kind of movement or step towards becoming aware of self love was coming into an understanding that I was not just in relationship with other people, that was that was actually in a relationship with myself. And I can't place exactly when that was. I think it evolved over, you know, through yoga practice, through meditation practice, through spending more time with myself. I started to realize that the relationship that I'm maybe having with someone else
mm,
is reflective of the relationship I'm having with myself.
yeah.
How I might um, be judgmental, or maybe less compassionate, or the way in which I might give things away to other people was reflective of the relationship I was having with myself.
Mm,
And so that was really, I would say, my entry into what then. Okay, so I'm in a relationship with myself. Well, then what? How am I with myself? How am I being with myself?
mm,
Um, am I being caring and loving and compassionate to myself? What is my self talk like? Um, how do I think of myself? So all of these things started to, um, yeah, emerge and come into my awareness. And so, yeah, then that became a practice of being aware of those behaviors or thoughts and patterns that
mm,
weren't exhibiting love to myself.
mm,
And
mm.
and there it started to unfold from there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's interesting that you said it evolved when you started to get into things like yoga and other sort of healing
Mm.
practices. So it's almost like there's something in you that was reaching for something, some kind of connection to self.
Yeah. Yeah. I think always, definitely in my journey, that's seeking
Mm,
outwards
mm,
sometimes is really a reflection of what I'm seeking inwards.
yeah.
And the, yeah, like contemplative practices like yoga or meditation can bring you to that place where you come into contact with yourself
Mm,
again. Um, and also creative practice might also do that.
mhm,
People say it's
mhm,
quite cathartic, or
mm,
there's a moment of a deeper awareness or connection to something bigger than yourself.
mm, mm,
um, yeah, I think those are the things that help you kind of be with yourself more
mm.
and notice what's actually here in the relationship that you're having with yourself. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Jay. Yeah,
Mm,
I can pinpoint, and I don't think I'll ever forget it, the
mm,
moment where I felt that self-love.
mm,
Because up until then, I think, like you were saying, it was kind of my relationship with others was to kind of draw in or elicit that love, to kind of seek that validation, to people please, very critical in my mind of myself.
mm,
Um, and sometimes not deliberately not taking up space, not wanting to kind of intrude or be seen and things like
mm.
that as well. And but I do remember I did this beautiful meditation. I can't remember the title of it, by Louise Hay.
Oh,
Many
yeah.
people would have heard
Oh,
of
yeah.
her. She's
Mm,
publisher of now. She's passed away now, but
mm,
I adored her teaching. She did a lot of things on affirmations and meditations, and I did one of her meditations, kind of around the inner child. And I remember visualizing myself as this 5-year-old child and just connecting to the innocence of that 5-year-old child. Uh,
mm,
and she goes deeper into it too, where I remember being asked to picture my parents as children as well, remembering that they once had aspirations and dreams and expectations of how their life would be.
mm,
And it was emotional, but ever since then I've had that connection. I've had her in my heart.
mm, mm,
Sort of remembered thinking, well, okay, whatever it is I'm asking someone else to give me, we're always trying to pull someone to fix our inner child or apologize to our inner child or
mm,
whatever that might be. And it's
mm,
remembering that, well, we can reparent ourselves in that moment. We can give her or him or whatever
mm,
you choose to identify as, give that younger version of yourself what
mm.
it needs, without
Yeah,
having to go outside to anyone else necessarily.
yeah.
Because I believe my inner child just wanted me. She didn't want anyone else, just me.
Mm, mm,
But I was never
mm,
there. I was always running away, trying to do other things or bring other people in,
mm,
and
mm,
just sitting with her in that moment was just mind blowing. It just changed everything for me. And so
mm,
from then, that's when I saw my self love grow, and it's still continuing to grow. You still have moments of relapse and trigger and everything else, but
mm, mm,
it is a really nice connection where I can look in the mirror, and that's a bit of we were saying that's a bit of a litmus test, isn't it? If you can look in
mm,
the mirror and look yourself in the eyes,
mm,
look beyond your physical body, and just
mm,
see into the soul of you and
mm,
that part of you, then you're kind of there. So yeah, that for me was, yeah, as I said, and I think I was about 40 at the time, and I
mm,
just out of a
mm.
divorce, was living on my own, me and my daughter for the first time.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't think
yeah,
I get that moment really
yeah.
hit me.
Really, really powerful.
Mm,
And also, just as you were speaking, felt the vulnerability in that,
mm,
in connecting with that. maybe more vulnerable part of yourself that wants to be acknowledged, wants to be tended to, noticed even, and how these kind of practices, we'll probably get into it a bit later, but how these practices can open up that space of vulnerability and inner, kind of an inner vision, an inner awareness that lets you see that these parts of us that have been kind of put aside or forgotten about, or maybe haven't been, it wasn't safe enough at some point to show them. And yeah, it's making me think about parts work and that kind of practice where you acknowledge, you know, there's different parts within you. That might be the creative part, or there might be the protective part, or the manager, as I familiar with, and bringing them back in and giving them voice and listening, hearing what they're saying.
Yeah.
Something about integrating all of you. Probably jumping ahead, but integrating more of yourself in that journey of self-love.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does help to almost detach and see that part of you as a small child as opposed to it being you. Then we become less critical and we have that compassion.
Yes.
But yeah, exactly as you say, if your inner child needs to be seen, you need to be the one to see it. If it needs love, you need to be the one to love it. Whatever it needs, you need to be the one to give that to your younger self, you know? And yeah, so it's interesting. It is interesting, yeah. So yeah, so that's the journey to self-love so far. I think just to add on to that, for me, it's gone into a little bit more of my body and how I'm treating my body as well. But again, we might be talking about that later in terms of giving my body what it needs as opposed to what I want and things like that. So my journey is definitely still carrying on in terms of self-love on the physical as well as the spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say it might start off, maybe we're going to move here anyway, but it might start off as small noticings or small choices that might feel small, or maybe surface choices, that then start to, they're cumulative. It's cumulative. It's like you start to feed in and pour into it. It then wants more of you. You know, the love calls in more of you. It gets fuller and fuller. So yeah, I was just thinking about self-care, and I don't know if I'm jumping. I feel like I'm itching to get ahead today. But yeah, that kind of self-care element that I think is kind of popularized, you know, a popularized term now, around what that means, and yeah, interesting having a conversation today with someone that I know about choosing themselves, and choosing to care for themselves, feeling selfish in some way, and that they're really wanting to work on reframing that idea that caring or spending time or giving something to yourself is in some way selfish. And yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are around that, and yeah, what, when clients come to you, if they do, with that kind of
Yeah,
sentiment.
particularly, yeah, absolutely. Particularly, I think most people spend a lot of their time giving to other people, being there for other people, whatever roles you're taking on in your life, you feel like you're constantly having to be there for them, particularly if it's like your kids, or, it might be we're caring for our elderly parents. And so, yeah, quite often when the time comes to give to you, it does feel like selfish or really indulgent, even if it's just sitting there for 5 minutes can feel like you're being selfish.
Yeah.
So it is something which comes up a lot with the women I work with, particularly in coaching, but also, with Reiki, they come and they're like, I want to do this for me. Similarly to what you said, the person you spoke to kind of said, this is for me. And it's almost like drawing a line in the sand, saying, right, enough, I need to nurture me. They're recognizing that they're depleted, they're burnt out, they're over-giving, they're people-pleasing, and it's not often reciprocated, So suddenly it's like the worm has turned, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to do something for me for a change, and myself, my healing. But the self-care piece, as you said, it can start quite, I know it's pop culture, but it can start quite, it isn't even superficial, but quite low maintenance in terms of, we'll talk about, okay, have a hot bath, or go for a massage, or have some tea, or have sleep more, or whatever it is, and we trivialize that a little bit because it has become so popular, but it is actually needed. It's essential, and it's actually the very start of that self-love process, because baths are really therapeutic and they nourish and nurture the organs. A lot of cultures, civilizations focused on bath, Italians, the Greek, Turkish, Middle Eastern, it's all Egyptian, as part of the culture, because it is in that hot water, warm water, you're putting your herbs, your spices, it's nourishing your joints, it's nourishing your organs. So yeah, we trivialize these things, but if we go back to its origin, there was actually a reason why that was introduced as a way of nourishing our bodies and healing our body. So for me, self-care is a form of self-love as well. And that's usually how it starts for a lot of people. They start, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run a hot bath for myself. I'm not going to pick up the phone today. I'm going to, So for me, it is actually, so as we've said earlier, self-love can be a deeper journey. And again, we'll be exploring more of that anyway. But it starts with that self-care, and self-care is very much a part of it.
It's almost like the care is the action of the love.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like there's a way of being or a way of acting that creates that space for you to be in contact with yourself, to be in connection with yourself, and to give yourself, and to maybe recognize where you might be more loving towards yourself. And offer yourself moments or pieces of love. The massage, or going for a walk, or spending a bit of time just breathing. We said sleep, didn't we?
Yeah, sleep, rest.
Yeah.
Even a pampering, a beauty set. It's all kind of, some people don't even go weeks without actually being physically touched. And a massage is an energy healing. I think a lot of people don't recognize it as such, but you're so all up in someone's energy body. If that person is aligned and in tune, you can get a really beautiful healing from that massage, as opposed to just being a frivolous beauty treatment. But all of these things, going for a walk, sleep, just taking care of you, buying a nice lotion and treating yourself to that shows your worthiness, we deny ourselves things. I used to observe myself dishing out dinner for my family, everyone else, I'd arrange it beautifully on the plate. And when it came to me, I'd just slap it on and eat. So even that, you know, reminding yourself that you are important too, and you're precious, and you also deserve a nice plate of food that looks nice.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what you said is bang on. Being able to embody that self-love through self-care, you know, it's us putting it in action and showing ourselves that we do actually care about ourselves. And it's just, I love that phrase, giving ourselves pieces of love. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So is self-love selfish?
No, in short, no. It's actually, I would say, and this is what I said to the person earlier as well, I would say it's actually a generous act. Self-love is a generous act. When I practice giving myself love, I'm also practicing how I give other people love. Also practicing how I can be fuller in the state of love, in the way of love, in all directions. So it can be kind of positioned as selfish. Some religions, some cultures, it might be seen as don't know if arrogant is the word, but self-indulgent or something like that. And I would say that there's that analogy that everyone uses now, that you need to put your mask on. If the plane's going down, you put your mask on first, and then you're able to help others with theirs. And it really is that. It's about how are we filling ourselves up? How are we resourcing ourselves so that we can give and offer without depletion, without depleting anything from us. We don't need to deplete ourselves in order to be in relationship with other people. And I think sometimes things can get a little confused around that. And the other thing that's coming to mind now is the kind of the maybe conflation with individualism that's kind of very dominant in Western society, well, modern society, let's say. You're on your path, you're driven, you're on the path to success, and it's about you and what you need. And I think there's a conflation that between that and self-love. I think self-love is actually innately collective, is actually innately communal.
It is. Yeah, there's a couple of points there. Love it. So with the point about religion, that's definitely something to mention. There's this almost martyrdom. My mum used to have this. She would always put herself last, do everything for everybody else, but there was a kind of martyr thing to it. My mum's a Catholic mum, so maybe that's where it comes from. But there is that aspect to it, isn't there? That if we start doing things for ourselves, then it just doesn't seem to go down well. We should be sacrificing our needs and wants in favor of the needs and wants of everybody else. And definitely with not just religion, but as you said, individualism. This thing that it's wrong to kind of focus on just you. It's definitely a big thing. Interesting.
There's something about worth that's coming up around what you said there, how we measure our worth, or how we kind of assign our worth or hold our worth, can be very embedded in like cultural traditions or values, and like this, that worth is about how much you give to others, or how much you produce, or this kind of outer
visibility of
visibility. And it's very wrapped up in self-love. For me, self-worth and self-love are really intrinsically entwined with each other. And it really does commit to how I hold my worth, where I'm placing worth on, what I'm placing worth on, and how that is how it can be supportive in terms of love, or how it can kind of maybe pull away from how much love I'm able to give myself.
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a conflict, I think many of us feel when we're looking at that, giving love or receiving love, deserving love, feeling worthy of love. Yeah, it's which is why we then seek that validation. So, oh yeah, we are worthy. Okay, I can love myself now. But it's yeah, for me it isn't. That's where it starts. You mentioned that, and before I go on, just to say, if you are watching, you're welcome to put a comment, say hi, ask a question as well, or just share how you show your self-love, or how you show your self-care, what you do for your self-care. Do you think they're both similar? Please chuck something in the comments and we'll pick that up and put it on the screen, and we'll share it with everybody and answer it if it's a question. But yeah, you mentioned something, Jae, about self-love being this, it isn't just an internal thing, but it draws community. It's connected to communing as well. And yeah, that's very much something which is part of Buddhist philosophy too, and very central to Reiki. In terms of the focus, particularly in the Eastern factions of Reiki, that the focus is on self. Because if you're not good, the people around you will also be suffering more. So we have to start with ourselves, and that energy radiates out to other people around us, the people we love. So it's seen as vital in Buddhist philosophy to kind of start with self. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of speak on that when you mentioned it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it in. Yeah, that's
yeah. So we were going to have a look now at some blocks to love. We've mentioned some of them, and there's quite a few. But yeah, did you want to start today with some that come to mind for you? Blocks to self-love.
I'm going to start, I think, with judgment, actually. I was thinking about something previously, but I think judgment can really block us from from accessing that compassion and love that we could have for ourselves. And it might show up as a projection, like how you might judge other people or judge situations, judge choices, and it could show up likely on how you judge yourself. And I'll speak from my point of view, from my experience and what I've observed with people that I've worked with, is when you can move into less of a judgment place, less of a need to fix things, then it becomes more acceptance around what is here, about our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our actions. So when we can come into more acceptance about who we are and the choices maybe that we've made, we can open ourselves to receive and to give love. And so what can be a big blocker is like having ideas around what should be, how things should be, who I should be, how I should be, and yeah, where there's shoulds. I heard this. I'm going to try and remember, but where there's shoulds, there's shame. You know, where there's an expectation around what should be happening, or who you should be, or who the other person should be, and that can create a distance, and and a distance from that more compassionate place. So I think that's my number one blocker for self-love. How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I think similar thing, the shame and guilt, not feeling deserving. You've kind of talked about that a little bit before. If you don't feel you're enough, you don't feel you deserve love, attention, to be seen, all of these things. And I guess the guilt and shame, maybe blame as well in there, if there's any energy of blame going on, blaming self, blaming others, because there can be a lot of projection, I think is what we're saying too, is when we're feeling a certain way about ourselves, if we don't love ourselves and we're being really critical, we're not showing ourselves that compassion, we can be projecting that out, and then we end up attracting people that validate that belief that we have about ourselves. That definitely sort of happens. I think we talked a little bit, well, we haven't really mentioned this, but trauma wounds, I guess that can link into guilt and shame and not feeling deserving. And so when we haven't healed certain parts of ourselves, or made peace with, like you're saying, really made peace with certain parts of ourselves, those wounds are there to come up and trigger us and keep us small. I liked you were kind of saying how we show up and how we show up and people please everybody else. And VB, I've seen your comment. I'm going to bring that up next, so do stay with us. So yeah, because it does link in, I think, to us being authentic, you know, and if we have this mask, or this person we think we should be, then all of these things can kind of block that love, that connection to others, and the connection to ourselves will be kind of limited. People pleasing, I mentioned, and then overgiving we mentioned, and also the self-talk. Do you want to speak a little bit about that, Jae?
Yeah, as a kind of symptom, really, of maybe where love for self is being. I actually feel like it's there underneath all of it, regardless. I think love is just it's an existence. But what can kind of distance us from that, or what can show up, is the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we might berate ourselves or put pressure on ourselves. It might also show up in like a form of perfectionism, or also scarcity, like telling or believing that we can do everything with less, you know, that we wait until maybe the absolute last moment when we feel completely depleted before we might act on something or ask for help. So yeah, I think the stories that we're holding and the stories that we're telling ourselves are really important, and can be a reflection of how we're holding ourselves in love or not.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm just going to bring on VB's comment. Good evening, Gwen and Jae. I think religion, it depends on the epistemological understanding. I had to read that slowly. Understanding of traditional and spiritual faiths, e.g., the saying God is beauty and loves to see beauty.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that in, Phoebe. Yeah, the reference to religion, I realised was quite general with that. Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, it was more that some aspects of religion can hold people in a kind of understanding that isn't supportive of their self-love, but there are fundamental underlying teachings of most religions are the same, of the same source, in that yeah, God is love or beauty or whatever you call it, call creation, that there is fundamentally love at
Yeah,
source of everything.
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it does depend on how what the understanding of that is, and what the translation of that translation and trans transmittance of the teachings are. So,
Oh, your mic's going a bit, Joe. But yeah, because we've talked about this before with religion. Most religions are fundamentally very similar, good, strong intentions and great connections. But I think as well, when I'm thinking about my mom, I'm thinking about her caring how certain things may be perceived by others. And so that needing to be seen, to be giving, be that martyr. Although my mom had a big heart and a kind heart, but I think there's maybe something which is culturally ingrained in, okay, we have to be of service, which is not a bad thing. It's great to be of
yeah,
service, but it's often at the detriment. Sometimes it can be
yes,
anyway, of
us
the
of
detriment of
yeah,
self.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
V
yeah.
has continued. So encouraging one to amplify beauty within self and do all things with beauty, e.g., making a pretty dinner plate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what you were speaking to
Yeah.
earlier. Is like, where is, like, finding the loving moments or the beautiful things in life that you can bring to yourself or gravitate
Yes.
towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Realizing you deserve that. You also deserve a pretty plate and
yeah,
the best china cup and to go out and wear your
yeah,
best. You know,
mm,
it's,
mm,
yeah, I completely agree with that, Vivi.
yeah.
But yeah, VB says she agrees, saying 100%. Lovely. Thank you so much for that comment,
Yeah,
VB.
thank
It's great to
you.
clarify that
Mm,
as well, I think,
yeah.
around religion. Uh,
Mm,
wasn't to generalize, but yeah, thank you
mm,
so much. Um, but yeah, so in terms of blocks to love, just going back to that, just seeing, we've basically said guilt, shame,
mm,
not feeling deserving,
mm,
blaming. And
mm,
I've also got here fear of being alone. Our
mm.
fears can stem from all sorts of things and traumas and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that can be one that can. I think that's a self love. Lack of self love can cause a fear of being alone. I think it's an
Mm,
output of,
mm,
as opposed to necessarily a cause. How do you see that, Jay?
mm. Yeah, I think aloneness is or loneliness is a really complex emotion, actually, because we can be connected to a lot of people and still feel quite alone. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's something intrinsic within in us about belonging,
Mm,
and it's related to belonging. And I think self love is also related to belonging,
mm,
and how we perceive who we belong to, or how,
mm,
our own self belonging. Do we belong to ourselves? And
mm,
how, again, goes back to worth as well. So I think, yeah, you said that it's self love is related to aloneness, and I believe these everything, all of this is related, of
mm,
course. Um, but and that, yeah, our aloneness can be a reflection of how close we are, or how much we can be with ourselves, and what, when we are with ourselves in kind of without distraction, what comes up, because that's where the things that we might be busying ourselves with, when we come back to ourselves without distraction and within a kind of inward seeking, practice, that there's things that will emerge that have been buried or hidden, or they start to surface. And so for me, the fear of aloneness, or being alone with yourself, was also kind of a fear of like what might be here when we do that, what might emerge, what feelings, what emotions, what memories, what ideas might emerge when we're alone with ourselves. So
Absolutely.
and yeah, and it's just a little extension of that, when we can receive and be and sit with ourselves with more acceptance. That's where we can learn to maybe love those parts as well. We can maybe bring in more self and love ourselves in a fuller, wholer way, rather than moving, like shaping ourselves into something that we may feel we can love, that is acceptable to love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Jay. It's a great point. I'm going to go back to the very first question, the title of this video, because we wanted to also clarify. So we're basically agreeing that self-love can be the key to fulfillment, but we probably need to define that a little bit more. Maybe give some examples there before moving on to sharing how we feel you can nurture more self-love. And so in terms of the key to fulfillment, even if we can't define it, but it's what does it look like? For me, I know that building that self-love, and as I said, it's still a work in progress, but it's a lot further along than it's been, has helped me, particularly in my relationships, whether it's love relationships or friendships or with my daughter, colleagues. So having that self-love means that, kind of like we were saying about the people pleasing, so it means that I can set some boundaries. I'm aware of those boundaries. I'm aware when they're being crossed, and I feel strong enough to say something in a kind way if need be, as opposed to before being fearful that, okay, this person may go away if I mention something or say something. So I think that self-love actually comes with a lot of power, a lot of strength. At your core, you're able to as you say, connect to your truth, know what you want, and know how to present that and say that, which then benefits the relationship as a whole.
Yes.
As you create this space for honesty, you create this space for openness, and also if we specifically talk about relationships, love relationships, when you do have that love for yourself, and we said we project out. So if you're projecting out love for yourself, you're going to get back someone who will equally love you. And so that you won't then compromise on that and accept anything less than that. So that's one of the ways. And as I said, we're here not to just be in our silos and be in solitude, really. We are here to commune and be with other people. And a lot of our growth comes from those interpersonal experiences and connections. And so we really want to be as authentic as we can in this world, not just for those connections, but for ourselves. And that for me feels like fulfillment, when we're able to be with anybody and be ourselves, because we love who we are. We're okay to show that all aspects of ourselves. But what does fulfillment mean for you in terms of self?
Yeah. So there was some things you said that made me, yeah, that brought, yeah, that's emerging. Something
Mm,
is emerging for that is
mm,
um, I matter and you matter. And
mhm,
I think there's something in self-love that means I matter
mhm,
and not at the expense of you. And
mm.
you matter not at the expense of me.
Yeah.
That we kind of find ways to meet each other, that I find ways to
Mm,
meet myself
mhm,
with love. And that's a practice. And that's something that is continually
mm,
practicing,
mm,
that I'm continually practicing, or that can be a continual practice. And I think, yeah, this fulfillment for me, I think I maybe just said it about, you know, self love really is a way that I can come into real connection with myself, with more parts of me, more wholly. I
mhm,
can be more accepting, less judgmental of myself, more compassionate. Um, and that allows me then to be more fully present with
mm,
myself, not an aspect of myself or what I think I should be, like who I am. I can be
mm,
present with who I am and allow that to move, change, grow, evolve.
mm,
And then when I feel like I can be fully present with myself, I can be more full with others and I can allow people to be more fully themselves as well,
mm,
because
mm,
I matter, you matter. I don't encroach, you don't encroach.
mm,
We kind of learn to love ourselves and each other more fully.
mm,
So for me, fulfillment is like taking that full word and saying
mm,
it's loving fully, it's living fully,
mm.
with each other.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, because I was even wondering if the word fulfillment, because it almost feels like a finite thing, like a completion thing.
Mm,
And we've
mm,
been saying all the way through that it's ongoing. It's never kind of
mm,
ending. So
mm,
maybe there's a
mm,
word we can supplement that with, or
mm,
replace that with. But
mm,
yeah, definitely, I love the analogy of feeling full yourself. All your relationships feel full.
mm,
Mm,
mm.
yeah, and there's that contentment that kind of
Yeah,
that brings that peace. I think that brings. Yeah.
yeah. And I think you kind of mentioned it. It means that there's more.
Yeah.
It is a position of abundance.
Mm,
It's a state of abundance because there's more that I'm worthy of.
mm-hmm.
And where you said, you want to accept less because you know there's more that you're
Yeah.
worthy of. You know there's more in
Yeah.
your relationships. There's more through work.
Mm,
Whatever it is that
mm,
you're bringing yourself to. So
mm.
yeah, I think that's where fulfillment can evolve. I do feel what you're saying about fulfillment being
Yeah.
quite finite, but then fulfillment I think can move and evolve and change.
Yeah. Wonderful. I love that.
Mm,
So we're just going to share some, I guess, some tips, some
mm,
things you may want to try or do in order to nurture more self-love for yourself.
mm,
And do feel free again to comment, ask a question on anything we've talked about before. Maybe there's some blocks to self-love that we've missed you might want to sort of bring in. And maybe you have your own perspective on what fulfillment is. Definitely share that with us. We'll bring it up on the screen,
mm, mm,
and just kind of discuss it or answer the question. But again, we're going to just cover some things, or we're going to cover some things around nurturing self love. that feel free to add your own, and we'll also add that in as well and talk about that. So Jae, yeah. So how do we nurture self-love? Some of it we have kind of tipped into. I mean, I'll start initially. I think for me, that mirror work is Louise Hay is a big proponent, or was a big proponent, of mirror work. I did a meditation, but I encourage my clients to also look in the mirror on a daily basis, look into their eyes and say, I love you. Some can't go that far, which is really saddening, but I was there too. So I completely also understand. And so we temper it down. So rather than I love you, it's like, you're okay. You're all right, girl. So whatever works for you, feel into that first. But don't shy away from it, and don't expect it to be like, oh, wonderful initially, because it takes time to accept that and accept those words from yourself. But it's so important to do to, benefit everything else that's going on around you. But yeah, so starting with even a small, you're okay, I like you, you're nice, whatever you can say to yourself in the mirror. But you'll be surprised, and my clients have found this as well, that although it's taken them decades to get to where they are, and decades of them thinking the way they've been thinking and not having that deep love for themselves for decades, some of them since childhood because of childhood trauma. So they're expecting this is going to be a really long, drawn out process, and they're really surprised when they start this work. But even they come back to me a week later and they're like, oh, my daughter was saying to me, what's got into you, Mum? Because I tried on the dress and I was looking in the mirror, I was going, oh, this dress looks nice on me, doesn't it? And they would never have said anything like that before. So they can start to see that crack of light is opening up. So don't underestimate the power of that. But initially it feels uncomfortable, doesn't feel right. You see all your flaws, you see everything that's wrong with you. But then you start to notice that it's softening, and it just gets a little bit better and a bit better. And then it starts moving into your life. You start making choices for yourself. So that's one of my big first ones to try. The mirror work, whether it's a big mirror, compact mirror. We look in the mirror so often, don't we? Brushing our teeth. But yeah, so that's one of my big ones to start with for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that, because as you said, we look in the mirror so often. The words that came through to me were, but we don't see ourselves.
We don't.
Yeah, we don't really see ourselves. Yeah, and so that feels like that's the practice of really beginning to see yourself in a passionate, loving way, which sounds, really beautiful. And it's that thing of starting small, meeting yourself where you are is so important. And sometimes we have these big, we want to do the thing, of course, but everything is a practice, and that's what I wanted to bring in again. I think I said it already, but everything is a practice. Start where you are, meet yourself where you can meet yourself, begin there, and then bring it in as often as you can, and step by step, little by little, notice the self-talk as it comes in, that and get curious about the self-talk is what I would say, because often we get the self-talk and then we don't, we can separate it from ourselves. We can say, oh, a part of me is thinking this when I look in the mirror. And then maybe you could ask another part of you of something else, or a part of me wants to tell me that you're great, or whatever the word is. So the self-talk is not you, is what I would invite. The self-talk is not you. So important to notice that, how it comes through in these practices. Then the offering that I would give is to write a love letter to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that might start off really basic. It might start off with one line. It might not be a whole letter at first. It might just be something compassionate or something loving to tell yourself. And again, come back to it. Come back
Mm-hmm.
to it. See how you might extend that writing and where you might get to with a love letter to yourself. And then you might put it down when you kind of feel you're good with it. That might be over days, that might
Yeah.
be a few months that it takes you to write that letter. Put it down, and then the moments when there's doubt or the self-talk, come back to the letter and read your letter to yourself um, as a point of connection, and
Yeah.
that's what I would offer.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, definitely. Those beautiful letters are beautiful to sit and write. And initially, you might sit down and think, what am I going to write? But once you start, it's almost like
Mm,
conscious channeling. It just kind of
mm,
starts pouring out. And you think, yeah,
yeah,
and it may be a bit emotional. So be prepared for
yes,
that as well.
yes,
Have
yes,
some tissues, maybe make a bit of a ceremony of it and light a
yes.
candle. But that's a really beautiful process, I think, Jay.
Mm,
Thank you.
yeah.
And with the self-talk as well, very powerful. And then kind of like the mirror work, starting with soothing statements as opposed to the direct opposite. It's very difficult to go from God, I hate myself to I
Mm,
love myself.
mm,
It
mm,
just the body's just not going to accept
mm,
that. So
mm, mm.
just soothing it in the same way as the mirror work,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever it might be,
yeah.
you're fine. You did your best. You're okay.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
I have clients who say, "Oh, nobody loves me," and then when we kind of question that, it's kind of like, well, actually, oh yeah, my mum does, my sister does. It's we can find things, so we sometimes go to this extreme
Mm,
with how we feel about ourselves, but
mm,
even just soothing it. Yeah, there's a few people I can think of who actually
mm,
care about
mm,
me and love me, and
mm,
you know, the analogy of being your own best friend is really
mm,
important here. I think with the self
mm,
talk, yeah, it's a great one as well.
mm, mm,
And then the one I wanted to offer as well was inner child work, particularly if there are some childhood wounds. You can try yourself, but there's some great experts out there who work in that field. I bring it into my work. I know you bring it into your work, Jay, as well. But just being able to um, do some inner child work, it doesn't have to be traumatic. It can be really beautiful, really transcending.
mm.
But that can really start a love affair with you, basically. So not shying away from that a little bit.
Mm,
But it can move into deeper spaces like therapy and professional help if you need that. But trying to sort of get to the root of certain things,
mm.
and with that compassion is something to think about as well. If you've really, really struggled with self-love, to kind of get to the bottom of it. Yeah, some amazing things there. I
Yeah.
love.
And I want to offer one more thing
Yeah.
just came to me, which was, we talked about self-touch earlier,
Mm,
and literally just giving yourself a hug
yeah.
when you feel you need a hug
Mm-hmm.
can be a really, like, kind of firmly feel, yourself,
Mm,
and that on an organic level does something for your nervous system
yeah.
and can then bring you into a more kind of restful, compassionate state.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that's a great one. I love that. Also great for, yeah, getting you out of your head a little bit because you're connecting with the body a bit more,
Yeah,
stopping the thinking, any overthinking.
yeah,
I love it. Some wonderful things there to try
yeah,
in terms of self-love. I love that. So the mirror work, inner child work, letter to self, and self-talk. Some amazing things. Thank
mm,
you, Jay. Yeah. So I think there's some wonderful things for people to try, but also to think about and contemplate, looking at the fact that self-love, we're kind of saying it's always an ongoing journey. Um, but looking at your blocks to that is important, you know, understanding what's coming up for you in certain moments, and then also giving yourself what you need, you know, so you're not so dependent on other people. That kind of self-regulating is important as well. We've decided that self-care is just as important as self-love, and is part of self-love and is a way of embodying self-love. So we're not going to poo-poo it anymore, trivialize it, or make it not as important. It is important, and we've seen that in various cultures, so we've talked about that too. And we've also established that self-love isn't selfish. It's where that transformation starts for all of us, a lot of us, and where that fulfillment can kind of come. So yeah, it's been a great discussion, Jae. Is there anything more you'd like to add around the self-love conversation?
Yeah, we didn't really touch on this, but you've just touched on it, about knowing our needs is really important. Doing some work around our needs is really important in kind of building, you know, maybe recognizing where you might need to put some boundaries, where you might need to protect your space, or that time to be with yourself, so that you can explore what self-love is for you. So I think that's really key point, actually, of
Absolutely.
practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got another comment from VB. We'll just put that up there. So this might be linked to critical self-talk, but I think learning to accept compliments from others and not negate them, knowing you are deserving. That's a huge thing. Oh,
yes.
well done. Yeah. This is
great point.
Comes up when I'm teaching Reiki, because we talk about the chakras, and the sacral chakra is about receiving. And we talk about gratitude because it's one of the Reiki principles as well. But I flipped it, so we look at the other side of that, being able to receive gratitude, receive compliments, receive thanks, shows you're worthy of that, and letting it land. So this is a huge point, VB. Thank you for bringing that up.
Really is, and that really resonates, because that was very firmly entrenched in my behavior for a long time. Deflecting any compliments. I became very skilled at it. And it took some unlearning around that to receive compliments or offerings of any sort. So that's a really, really important one to bring in. Thanks, Phoebe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phoebe. And BB says, finally, thank you. Very insightful, inspiring. Oh, you're welcome, VB. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was lovely to have you join us and share your comments, questions. It was good to bring them up. All of them very sort of integral to our discussion. Actually, it was nice, very relevant. So thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, so we'll just have a little look at what's coming up next time. Jae and I are committed to showing up for you every month whenever we can, once a month. And so next time, we know quite a few of our viewers are, and particularly my community as well, and your community as well, Jae, with the work you do around the branding, helping people with their branding. So we wanted to talk about this, how to bring ease and authenticity into your holistic business, just to kind of give people some ideas about maybe what we struggle with in our business and what's worked for us, energetically, strategically, I don't know, even in terms of IT, technically. So this is something we'll be talking about next month. So I'm hoping you can join us. But yeah, Jae, do you want to share how people can reach you? And I know you've got a wonderful offering coming up very soon.
Yes, you can find me at ourlivingtree.co.uk or on IG, Instagram, our_living_tree. And I'm holding a journey, a six session journey that's happening over 12 weeks. So it'll be one session every other week, bi-weekly. and that's called Becoming Elemental Renewal. And so we'll be exploring and connecting with nature's elements that are alive within us and all around us. And exploring a deeper sense of our authentic self through the elements, and actually how we intrinsically belong to the wider world. So there'll be a circle of women, and we'll be exploring some practices, somatic practice, African spirituality practice, and some movement and rest and all the good stuff. So inviting anyone that's interested or curious to go to Oya Retreats. That's OYA retreats.com, and it's all on there.
Yeah, I put the link in the description, so they've got it there and straight to it. But it sounds wonderful. It sounds fabulous. Thank you so much. So you're going to say something, Jae? You okay?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and it starts on the 30th of March.
Lovely. It sounds incredible. And if you're interested in learning how to do Reiki on yourself or others, then you're welcome to go to my website, myspiritualbutterfly.com, and you'll find the Reiki section there. Or if you're interested in coaching, then there's also a coaching page, myspiritualbutterfly.com. Lots of really useful links below as well. If you enjoyed this conversation, please comment, please share, please like, and definitely subscribe to find out when we're doing this again next month, the exact date, and also to find out about any other sort of videos around Reiki, so Reiki healing and coaching bites that will be coming up here and conversations. So, but yes, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. See you next month. Thank you. Bye.